we had Becky Lynch defending the Women's Intercontinental Championship against Nikki Bella. Noticeable boos. Nothing overwhelming like Logan Paul. Noticeable boos, though, for Nikki Bella when she came out. Cheers. Noticeable cheers, especially at the end when she won for Becky Lynch. So that was interesting. Not surprising, but interesting. Nikki came at her with a fury right out of the gate. So Becky retreated to the outside. Nikki went for a sliding drop kick through the ropes to the floor. Becky had moved out of the way, so Nikki just didn't even land on her feet. She landed on the ground. She crashed and burned. Back inside, Becky landed a leg drop from the top rope for a 2 count. There was a spot outside the ring, a few minutes into this, where Nikki started slamming Becky. It was supposed to be face first repeatedly, over and over again into the announce desk, right? Top part of the announce desk. And I should say that she was ramming her hands first into the announce desk. They really should have switched to a different camera angle for this, because all you saw was Becky, her hands were going into the announce desk, and it just looked really bad. They should have shot this a little bit differently. Then there was a very embarrassing spot where Nikki went for a disaster kick, like she was Cody Rhodes, not from like the center part of the rope. She went to the corner, but she came off the middle rope with her version of a disaster kick. And she went for it before bothering to see if Becky was in position. Now, she did initially turn around to just kind of take stock of where Becky was. And Becky was not in the position that you would have wanted her to be in. Nikki turns back around and she goes through with the kick, I guess expecting that Becky was going to be there. But she wasn't, and she didn't bother checking. So she goes and throws this kick. The only thing is, she turns around, there ain't nobody there. There's nobody there. She threw a kick at John Cena. And Becky, what made it even worse, you can't even say it was a glancing blow. Like, it did not connect. But Becky, in the moment, stumbled. Like, she was like, oh, I got to sell this. And then she quickly realized, okay, this looked terrible. I'm not going to sell this. But initially, she kind of did. It was terrible. Like, she wasn't even in the neighborhood. So that looked very bad. Nikki briefly sold leg pain. I'll bet her ego hurt more than her leg did. Nikki went for the rack attack. Becky worked out of it. And Nikki ran at Becky. Becky moved. Nikki went to the apron. So Nikki went to the top rope. Becky cut her off, landed a superplex from the second rope for a 2 count. Bella went to the Fearless Lock, which she had used earlier in the match. She went back to her Fearless Lock. Nikki, though, got to the ropes, or Becky did rather, broke the hold. So the action spilled outside. Becky dismantled the ring steps. She tried to lift Nikki up. Nikki, though, fought back and ended up hitting a Bella Buster on the flat part of the ring steps. Back inside, Nikki hit Becky with her own manhandle slam for a near fall. Nikki then tried for a disarm her. Becky slipped out, did a variation of the same finish that she used. I want to say it was it Backlash? Whatever it was back in May. She used a variation of the same finish that she won with in her triple threat match with Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. Only this was not as smooth. Basically a backslide. And she got a backslide and she won with it. Now that was a great finish a few months ago. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't as good as that finish was. But it was effective, and she won with it, and she retains the Intercontinental title. And I said this, I tweeted this out when the match was over. I said, well, that was certainly a match that happened. I'll even go as far as to say it was the best women's match on the entire show. That's about the nicest thing I could say about this match. Man, boy, I sure wish we had that Stephanie Vicaire match on this show. It's really a shame we didn't get that. This was nowhere near the level of the matches, for the most part, that Becky had with Lyra Valkyria outside of their SummerSlam match, which wasn't very good. This was the worst match, though, of Becky's run so far since she came back and since she won the Intercontinental title. She tried to make something out of this. They just weren't on the same page for most of it. It just didn't feel like they were in sync together. The way they did the finish, they may be tempted to run this back again. I'm sure these two would love to go back out and have a second crack at it. Try to have a better match. If they insist on doing this match again, and I don't think there's a single person out there who is asking for a rematch here, but if they are going to do a rematch, you could do it on TV. This would be the perfect time to use their go-to stipulation with all the plunder and all the weapons and the kendo sticks, and do a match like that, like a no DQ match, so they at least have the bells and whistles that they can rely on. I don't have any interest in seeing this run back with any stipulation, but if they're going to do it, I think that would be the way to go about doing it. And the thing with Nikki Bella, outside of that one terrible botch, it wasn't as if, outside of that one botch, it was a great match. No, it wasn't a great match. It was the weakest match on the entire show. And one of the worst matches that Becky has had all year, if not the worst. The thing with Nikki Bella, though, it's not that Nikki is awful. She's always terrible. She can't wrestle, right? It's not that. When Nikki was the Divas champion, okay, when she was on top back in her day, she was average at best compared to the quality of the women that we are used to seeing now in WWE. When you talk about Becky and Lyra and Charlotte and Rhea and Bianca and Io and Asuka and on and on and on, the quality is just so far superior to what Nikki was working with, and frankly, Nikki herself, even when she was in her prime and the longest reigning Divas champion of all time and all of that stuff, she was still average at best compared to what we see today. So now she comes back, and I know everybody is singing her praises and how revolutionary she was and all of this and blah, blah, blah. We hear it in every single promo. But again, they build her up to be something that she really isn't. And I'm not saying she can't go out there and have a good match or a solid match, but this was certainly not it. I'm left even wondering how we even got to this point, because part of the issue also, this is absolutely part of it. She has had one other singles match this entire year. Since she came back at the Royal Rumble, the only other singles match that this woman has had was a Raw match against Chelsea Green like 6 weeks ago. So ring rust and her, lack of matches of any kind, tag, singles, or anything, I'm sure played a role in this. She's not getting the reps in. She's not wrestling on a regular basis. She's not even wrestling on a part-time basis. And so that's going to play a role as well. And all of that conspired to give you what you saw here on this show tonight. There are much better opponents for Becky to be in the ring working with. One of those names is the name that I just mentioned a little while ago, which is Stephanie Becerra. Now, we should find out tomorrow what their big solution is to this women's championship vacancy. They delayed it another week, so we have to find out tomorrow. Based on what Adam Pearce was saying, it sounds like it's one name. He was just trying to work out the details. I hope it is just one name, whoever that name is going to be, as long as it's not Nikki Bella. Whoever that name is going to be. I'd rather they not go through the whole rigmarole of like a multi-person fiasco. And that name, whoever that name is going to be, is likely going to end up being the next women's champion, because I just don't think Stephanie needs the title right now. I think it would be a mistake to put the belt on her right now. Stephanie didn't even wrestle at all the entire month of August. Like, she's been a total non-factor on these shows. You got to build her up. You got to build her up, honestly. I mean, she won that Battle Royal at Evolution. She's been on the main roster for, I don't know, what, 2 months, 3 months now? Not that long. She's barely been established. She's very popular, and everybody loves the Devil's Kiss, but she's not established enough. And she's somebody who could be a major player for them. You need to take your time so that first championship win really means something. I think a better position for her to be in would not be challenging for the Women's World Championship, but for her to be challenging Becky Lynch for the Intercontinental title. And I think that's exactly the kind of person that Becky should be working with and dropping the title to eventually. It's not Nikki Bella. Nikki Bella is from the past. I don't even know how Nikki Bella ended up with a women's Intercontinental title match when she's had one other match the entire year. One other singles match. And she's fighting for the championship here. That's a whole other story. Nikki Bella does not need to be a part of this at all. She should be under the learning tree. That's where she should be. Under the learning tree. Fuck that tree. Under the learning tree is where she should be. Stephanie Vicaire is the one who should be in that position. That's what I would do. And then I would eventually build up to her winning the IC title. Let her get a run with that, just like she had the North American title in NXT. And eventually you can build to her winning the World Championship next year. That's the kind of person that should be in this spot. That's the kind of person who would benefit from working with a Becky Lynch. Let that rub off on Stephanie, a big name, right, for her to be working with. And both really good. I think the two of them would probably have pretty incredible chemistry together. I mean, you don't know until they're in the ring together. But I just think someone like that should be in this position, not a Nikki Bella.